So this is going to be a kind of strange video that I may not even ever post. I'm sitting here in what's my operator's chair, so to speak, looking at the layout through the camera and thinking about a major change. Now, to get rid of some things right off the bat, I'm not really going to change much about the way that the track is structured here, or even the layout of the buildings. I've decided after much time, including times when I wanted to do something completely different, including times when I drew track plans for something completely different, that I rather like this industrial layout that I've created. I enjoy doing the switching puzzles. I enjoy starting with a bunch of freight cars in a particular set of positions, and then a set of freight cars on a train going around the outside, which I stop, change get rid of or change the train that's hauling them around, and then start swapping the freight cars, which are on the train coming in, if you will, coming into Vulcan, with the freight cars that are already placed in Vulcan. I like that. And I like the basic layout of the time saver puzzle that I used as the fundamental design. There are some things that I don't like. I don't like the process I used for the scenery in between the tracks. So this is a prime example of what I don't like. This is a piece of foam board, foam that I thought was a great idea, or it is a great idea for one purpose. I can pull up these pieces and have this restored to a tabletop in no time flat. I can pull up these pieces and do a deep cleaning of the track. That is an advantage. I haven't done it for about 2 years, but that's an advantage. But I just don't like it. It's not at the standards that I want to have for scenery. I want to do something, quote unquote, real. That is to say, using the standard techniques of plaster cloth or sculpt-a-mold, or things that are the mark of a real and not a toy layout. So that's one of the objectives, is to be able to change the way the scenery is done so that it looks more realistic is probably the wrong word, but so it looks more like a proper layout and doesn't have these rather absurd cuts and that kind of stuff. The second thing I want to do is extend the space by about 1 foot. I rather inappropriately or mistakenly specified this table, hope you can see that, to be almost exactly the space that I needed for the layout. That means that I was very much limited in the amount of space that I had, certainly around the outside. This track goes right along the edge, like right along the edge. which means that sometimes things fall off. It means that it's always not at its best. And so I would like to add about a foot. And the way I'll do that is by buying a piece of board, plywood probably, that will start here, go to here, and extend 1 foot. So that means the table's going to have to move out about a foot. There's a subsidiary issue with that. I want to clean up this mess. I guess you can't see that. Clean up this mess and put better organization of my modeling materials down here. There are 2 questions to be decided, and they're both pretty serious ones. So the first question is, do I stay with the Bachmann Easy Track, of which I already have a fairly substantial investment, or do I switch to Flex Track and ordinary turnouts, Pico or Atlas or whatever turnouts? And the second one is whether I go to DCC. As you can see here, I'm on DC today. The DC serves me well. It's a small layout. It doesn't need the sophistication of DCC. I'm not going to, on a small layout, I'm not going to be running multiple trains at the same time, or at least it would be difficult to run multiple trains at the same time. But it obviously has much more capability in terms of lighting and sound and that kind of stuff. And of my 4 locomotives, 2 switchers, you can't see the other one very well, it's underneath that shed, and the this GP7U and the RDC, all but the GP7U are DCC, so they could be running DC on this layout, no question. That's probably the easiest decision. That's almost made. The only consequence would be that I probably couldn't run this DC only 7U, which I really like. It runs very well, and it's a nice locomotive. I would probably then try and do a DC-C conversion. Don't even know if it's possible. The track is a bigger issue. I don't have an estimate of how much it would cost me to do the track, to swap out the existing Easy Track and put in quote-unquote normal track with cork road bed and proper ballasting and all that kind of stuff. Don't know. As you can see, I have a mixture of steel and nickel silver. The gray is the nickel silver and the black is the steel. All the stuff I bought extra is nickel silver, but the original stuff that came out of the train set that I bought is steel, and most of the curves are steel as a consequence. So all of the main outside curves here are steel. Now I, with some frequency, run, I'm not sure if I can pick this up, but I run, as I am just right now, what are they called? Dust bunnies? No, I can't remember. The Woodland Scenics product that you fit underneath, it's fitted underneath that caboose, and it's running around cleaning up the the outside oval, which is a necessary step. But I'm sorely tempted to find an estimate of how much it would cost to swap out the Easy Track and put in what you might call real track. The reason not to is cost. Second is the SA, as I like to say, stands for South America. It's not easy for me to get materials like Flex Track. I can get them. There's no problem, quote unquote, no problem. It's just a matter of how much you're going to pay to ship the materials here. Especially when you think about the cost of a turnout. Why would you do that? Or what would be the cost of doing that? And the second is that I'm not sure that the Easy Track is that wrong. I mean, it seems to, it works fairly well. After this is the 4th year of this being here, and it works very well. I got one turnout that I don't particularly like. That's kind of busted. That I think needs to get just replaced, but I can replace it. And buying a new turnout or a new turnout or two, and buying some more Easy Track is maybe not as expensive as pulling all this up and replacing it completely. One thing I will do when I put the extra foot on is I'm going to rotate this layout at about 45 degrees. So it's going to shift so that it will run from that corner up there to this corner here with the extra foot. That will give me a few more inches and allow me to deal with this problem here, which is that I hope it'll help with this problem here anyway, because this turnout is way too deep, and I can't switch properly. I can the small switcher that I have down here, the 44-ton switcher will go in there and switch, but almost nothing else will. Certainly, for example, this Scale Train's carbon black hopper won't switch. It'll go in and it'll go out whichever way it came in, but it can't go from one to the other. So I'm hoping with another 3.5 inches or so, I should be able to, you can see that I got at least 3.5 inches, if not more. I can extend this out all the way along and get that to be longer. I'm also half hoping that I'll be able to put a double crossover on this back stretch here, and that will allow me to get another length of track that I can use as a quote-unquote yard, or at least a parking track. I would like, when it goes diagonal, some parts are going to get hard to reach, and I'd like to be able to put a connection off the end here with using the double crossover, so that I can put a module out here that will just removable, and so I can do staging out here and then run trains onto the main part of the layout. That's the plan in general terms. When is it going to happen? At the very least, I have to make a couple of the major decisions, and then get the piece of wood and decide what to do with the track. So it's still a ways off, but I figure that'll give me another 2 or 3 years maybe of work on the layout. We're doing the stuff that I really like, which is the scenery stuff. But in the meantime, I may wind up not being able to run trains. And I love running trains. Anyway, that's an update, speculative update while I think about what I'm doing, and leave your comments below if you've got any advice, especially on the easy track versus changing to Atlas or Pico or one of the big names. And I mean, the DC thing, pretty much, that decision's pretty much made. It's just a question of money, as most decisions usually are. Yeah. Thanks, and thanks for staying tuned. Like and subscribe, please.